Hi, I just got done editing this entire video and realized I should probably mention a few things. We're going to be talking about Daniel and what it's like to be in Daniel's family, how he had his own kids marry each other, and kind of the prejudice against Daniel's family because Daniel's family was kind of wild. But I do want to mention that Paul, the leader Paul, his family was pretty wild too, but you didn't see as much prejudice against it because Paul was the leader. So there was obviously Daniel's family wasn't the only family like this. There's other families there was prejudice against them because they were not Kingston. There was others because, they were, Paul didn't like them. So then they became kind of ostracized within the group. Today we're just focusing on Daniel's family. And I just wanted to make that clear. Daniel's family is not the only one. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you for listening. Okay, bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the Culty Crew podcast. I'm Amanda Ray, and I was born and raised in a polygamous incestuous cult. We're going to be talking about that today with my cousin Allison. Her dad is Daniel, so we keep referencing a man named Daniel, and I'm just going to explain who Daniel is. He is the leader's older brother, and he has 14 wives, over 200 kids, married, some of his own half-sisters. And I make this joke a lot, but it's a true joke. Daniel's kids leave the most, and I really think it's because Daniel's just the most wild, off-the-rail, numbered man there is. I mean, in my opinion. But Daniel also is the man who forced his daughter, Marianne, to marry her uncle David. Remember this story? David went to prison for raping his niece, underage niece. David is Daniel's brother. Sorry, there's a lot of names here, but David, Daniel, Jesse, Paul, all brothers to Paul, the leader. Well, Paul is the leader, but leadership brothers, numbered men, very high up in the church. So Daniel forced his daughter, Marianne, to marry David. David goes to prison for raping his niece because Marianne reports it. Marianne did not want to marry her uncle. Daniel was forcing it. And because Marianne was fighting it, Daniel beat Marianne, some say almost half to death, and Daniel went to jail for it. So you can look all this information up. Not a great guy, okay? Not a great guy. I don't like him. I don't know. Just something about him, Something about the way he looks. I don't like it. So Allison has had the unfortunate experience of being born to this man. But she has been kind enough to talk about the experience of being his daughter and watching the chaos of that lifestyle and being in that cult within a cult, of being in the order cult, but also being in Daniel's family. And we will be talking about how her own siblings married each other, and it was on Daniel's wishes, per Daniel's request. Well, I believe it was 100% Daniel's coercion. That's just, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I really think that Daniel is such a narcissist that he wanted to see his own kids marry each other so that he could have like a purer form of him. You guys tell me though in the comments down below after you hear this whole podcast episode what your assumption is of someone so just delusional. Like I think that people like Daniel can't exist now in this day and age because there's too many people holding him accountable and they're gonna go to jail. But because of a cult like the Order, people protecting the abusers because they're brainwashed into thinking that these abusers are actually godly people. Like that, people don't protect people like Daniel as much out here in the real world. Daniel is such a psychotic person that I think that if he was out in the real world, he would be in prison. If no one was protecting him, he'd be in prison already for a long time. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Thank you again to Allison for sharing and being so candid and real about her story. I always love doing podcasts with her. She's a cool bitch, okay? Her mom married Daniel, I believe, as the fifth wife. And then Jessica and Andrea's mom married Daniel as the sixth, and then Shirley married as the seventh. And Allison's mom and Jessica and Andrea's mom are full sisters who married Daniel. And Daniel also married his own sisters. Let's not forget that. Okay, so sister wives and sisters married Daniel. Daniel also married his own sisters, so taking sister wives to a totally new level that we never saw before, and a very gross one at that. Okay, bye-bye now. How did I get here? Hey Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and I escaped a polygamous cult. If you're interested in hearing more about that story, I'll leave the links to the videos in my description box down below. But today we have Allison with us. We've had her on my channel before. Yeah, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
She's Daniel's kid, and we're going to be talking about Daniel's family and what it was like to grow up with Daniel being your father. Do you call him your dad?
I only ever called him his name, Daniel.
Yeah. It's so weird. And so I kind of thought that she didn't know who her dad was for a while, but you knew your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I did.
It's really common in the order to grow up not knowing who your dad is till you're like trustworthy. Like I didn't know who my dad was, and it's because he was living polygamy, and apparently he was also married to his half sister. So there's a lot of reasons why they didn't want us to know he was our dad. If you're interested in seeing more of Allison's story, we do have some videos that I will link down below. But maybe I'll do a background for anyone who doesn't know. Daniel is the leader Paul's brother. He's older?
Yeah, older brother. What? Daniel is the older brother of Paul.
Is he he's not the oldest?
No, he's not the oldest. He's the second oldest boy, but third oldest child.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that. So it goes Big Joe, Ruth, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I always thought it was so interesting that they didn't choose him to be the leader, but it's probably a good thing. It's probably a really good thing.
I think that there was definitely a tactic behind not choosing him.
Do you think they knew from a young age? They're like, he doesn't have charismatic qualities.
I think it definitely helped push them the other way. There was probably so many factors that came into play, but then they're like, yeah, definitely not Daniel because he's Daniel.
Yeah, I heard a lot of stories about your dad when I was younger. And one of them, I don't know if this is even relevant, but did you ever hear the story of him throwing glass bottles into a street while he was on a roof? And then his parents caught him and he got in a lot of trouble?
No.
Like he just seemed like a little menace when he was a kid. But he's also a menace as an adult too.
Yeah, he was a little menace. There was some stories that he would tell me because I did a report on him in 5th grade, and so I had to interview him, and a lot of the stories.
At Ensign?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the stories that he told me, he's like, but maybe don't put that in the report. Maybe don't put that one in the report either, because he was like, it made him look bad because he did naughty things as like a kid and a teenager.
So what did you put in the report?
It was a very short report. There wasn't much to say.
He's a dad of what? Had 200 kids at the end.
Mm-hmm, pretty much.
We're going to be talking about what it was like to be Daniel's kid, because even me in the order as my dad being a half brother to your dad, there was a lot of stigma behind Daniel's kids. Like I was allowed to be friends with them, but it was a known thing that we were not going to be marrying any of Daniel's boys.
Wow.
Did you know that?
For your family?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
Not your family, no.
And I didn't know this until my older sister got caught sneaking out with.
Oh, okay.
And my mom was like,
the worst of the worst.
Yeah, maybe that was what it was that it was one of the worst of Daniel's kids. He was just known for acting out. And my sister got caught sneaking out with him, and my mom physically beat her and was like, I did not raise you to go marry Daniel's kid.
Not everybody wanted their kids to join Daniel's family or specific families in Daniel's family. Like the first wife was fine, some of the other wives were fine, but...
Yeah, I honestly think it was specifically that one, but I did notice how none of the girls did have the opportunity to go. There was one of your half brothers who did go forward on Cammie, and my dad allowed him to, but I think my dad knew that it wasn't the choice that he wanted, because Cammie had to write down a list of options for men that she could marry, and when my dad saw that list, then he added one of Paul's married men on the top of the list. So he wasn't necessarily adding your family. There was prejudice against your family, and you saw it as a kid.
Oh yeah, my whole life I can remember. Sorry,
Hold it if you want.
Should I?
Because you'll be talking for a little bit.
Speak into the microphone. Just as early as I can remember, then different friends that I would make, growing up in the order school. I would jump between friend groups because I would be friends with a friend group for a little while that was not Daniel's kids, and then they would distance themselves from me. So I would kind of bounce around, and as I got older, then they would tell me, well, it's because my parents found out that I was your friend, and they said I'm not allowed to be friends with Daniel's kids.
And they didn't say why?
It was being Daniel's kid was enough of a reason, you know?
Wow.
But then when I would try to understand more, then it was always because a lot of Daniel's kids leave the order. And when Daniel's kids do leave the order, they always put someone in prison. And that Daniel's kids, they don't listen. Even when they're in the order, then they are disobedient and they're BOSing and they're not good
I always
people.
saw that, though, that they were more living on the edge. Do you think it's because Daniel was so, like, crazy?
I think definitely because he was so crazy, and there were so many different family dynamics within Daniel's family, because, you know, the first wife, they were holier than thou. Like, they were equivalent to, like, Paul's kids almost.
Were they the favorite? One of the favorites?
They were definitely one of the favorites. And then just, like, different wives had different family dynamics. Some of them lived on the farm, so they were very different than, like, my family, where, like, my mom and my mom's sister who married Daniel, we weren't Kingston at all.
Right.
And,
so
like, the Hansons
hierarchy?
weren't Kingston at all. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That so her mom is sisters to Jessica and Andrea's mom, and I feel like those two were going to be close because they're sisters, but then I feel like they were also very close to Shirley because the Hanson was more outcast too.
Yeah, they were more outcast, and they also grew up at the mine. And, like, my mom and my mom's sister, and I believe Shirley,
was at the mine.
grew up at the mine, so they knew each other.
I heard a story that Daniel never wanted to marry Shirley. Did you ever hear that story?
Yeah, and even, like, when he was married to her for years and years after they had 10 kids, and he still didn't want to be married to her.
He would say that?
Yeah.
What a sad life.
Not necessarily the words like, I don't want to be married to her, but he just talked so much crap on her. Like, he would hold family meetings, like, within the individual homes and just talk all this crap on Shirley about how she's such a horrible wife. She doesn't listen. All her kids are terrible.
Oh my god.
Don't be like Shirley's kids.
And Shirley is Gerald's dad. Well, mom. Sorry. So Shirley and Daniel are the parents of Gerald. But I just want you to tell the story of the John's Marketplace, just because it's a good, like, example of how Daniel's kids are treated.
Yeah, so I worked at John's Marketplace when I was 15 years old, and I wasn't there for very long, but one day, like, I worked in the bakery, I was closing up the bakery, and the manager came over and he was like, hey, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be fired tonight. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what did I do?
My ass off over here.
I know, I was like the only one in the bakery. I was 15 years old working 50 hours a week. I wasn't in school at this time. And I was, like, so shocked. He came up to me and told me, yeah, you're probably going to be fired tonight. And I was like, for what? When I asked why, then he was like, well, they've been trying to fire you for a while. Like, they would have, like, work meetings every week. And he's like, almost every single work meeting, then they would all get together and brainstorm ideas and ways that they can justify firing me. Like, did anybody notice her do anything this week? Did anybody notice, like, is there anything we can fire her for? And I was like, why? And he's like, probably because you're Daniel's kid.
Wow.
And I was like, are you serious? That's the only reason? And he's like, I don't know. Like, probably just because you're Daniel's kid.
One of Paul's kids?
He was the manager that told me that I was probably going to be fired was one of Paul's kids. And then that night, like, the manager, I guess, not the owner of John's Marketplace, but the person they put over John's Marketplace, texted me that night and fired me.
Over text?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Were you even getting paid?
No.
I know. I feel like it was always so confusing on the pay scale. Like, wait, why are they subtracting this and then adding this, and how come my account balance is never going above a certain amount?
No, it never went above a certain amount, and I was working like 50 hours at least. Like, I remember, like, clocking in, clocking out, and you can watch your hours add up. Like,
yeah, but you're Daniel's kid, so you don't need to get paid. Yeah. Do you think Daniel knew that his kids were treated that way and he just didn't care?
I think he did know that his kids were treated that way, but, like, I don't think, like, he knew to what extent. Like, yeah. I think he thought when it came to having a job in the order, then, like, because I didn't choose to have the job at the bakery. Like, I was placed to work at the bakery. And so I thought that maybe because I was placed to work at the bakery by, like, a higher up, then, like, that trumped the fact that I was Daniel's kid and they just had to put up with it. But it didn't.
Wow. Where did you go after that?
After that, then I can't remember. I think I went to work for family stores.
I'm so curious though, like how your mom's relationship was with Daniel. Did they seem like they? Because I just can't picture Daniel loving anyone, even himself. I don't even think he likes himself.
I mean, when he was there, then I saw like moments of them being like lovey-dovey to each other, but like very, very brief moments. Like majority of the time, if he was at the house, he wasn't at the house to see my mom. But sometimes then like I saw them like when they would interact with each other and they were both having a good day. And there wasn't a kid that was in line to get a beating. then they were like lovey-dovey to each other, but it wasn't often that I saw that.
Yeah. What about her birthday? Did he come out for her birthday?
He always took her out for her birthday, like to dinner and for their anniversary. But I didn't get to see that, like, because they would go somewhere. Yeah. So I don't know what it's like to go out with Daniel on a birthday dinner. I know a lot of times they would go to like a buffet because he didn't like waiting for his food. Oh. So they would go to like Golden Corral
for their anniversary. Yeah. Happy anniversary. Go get your spat on. I always feel like they spit on the salad bar.
You think?
The salad bar always seems like there's stuff all over it.
Or like people chomping gum over it.
Yeah. And because there's no like real glass covering. But it's good for your immune system. Yeah. My dad did daddy-daughter date, one, with all of his girls to kind of be like, it was like Valentine's Day, and he was like, he gave us this locket with a picture of him in it to be like, I am the man that holds the keys to your heart until I give you to your husband. Did your dad do anything like that?
Not really like a daddy-daughter date, but I guess his equivalent to that would be like his girls outing. So it was very similar to like the scout outing where we would go like camping somewhere, but for like or like to the lake. So we always went every summer. Then he would take like all his girls to Willard Bay or Pine View. We would go like jet skiing and stuff, and then we would stay at like a condo or something.
Oh, I
like
think I
Wolf's
heard about
Creek.
This.
And then we would have like a little meeting there, but that's when he would like compare a girl to like soup, and like what? You don't want to like eat soup that's been sitting in the fridge and warmed up and then sitting in the fridge and then warmed up. You want to eat the soup fresh.
Was that his relation to sex?
I think so. And that's why it's like so important to keep your purity,
because you want to be a good yummy soup. Mm-hmm. What did you ever have the thought though, because even as a young girl I had this thought, well, what if I'm a fifth wife? Then my soup's been warmed and whatever. Put in the fridge, why do I have to get a warmed piece of
poop
doo-doo and they get to have this virgin, you know? Mm-hmm. I was like, if I knew I was going to be a fifth wife, then I would go sow my wild oats. Like, why would I care?
Yeah, I definitely had that thought, but I never like brought it up to anybody just because
I was scared.
Yeah, because you just don't talk about it. What your questions, I guess.
Yeah, it does cause a riff, definitely, when I started questioning things. I even flat out asked my dad, how come I don't get to have multiple husbands? You get to have multiple wives? And he just laughed in my face. And I was like, that is a legit question. I know it's not to you because you don't give a fuck about us. But to us, it's a legit question.
Yeah. It definitely bothered me when he would, like, compare us to, like, inanimate objects.
Yeah, but it happened in the LDS church too. Apparently Shalise was saying that they did the chewed gum analogy.
Really?
They'd be like, who wants this gum? And all the kids would be like, me, and then they would chew it and be like, now who wants it? Like it's a woman's virginity. Mm-hmm. It's so messed up though. Okay, I wrote down too, because my dad did the same thing where he would try to act like he knew that you were guilty of something and you didn't know what he knew, so then you would come clean. Mm-hmm. I had that happen to me multiple times with my dad, and I was like, oh my god, I need to just lie to him. How did your dad do it though?
So I feel like the situations that I was personally in, that it was never like a only me thing. Like I was always like in a group of my sisters, like we had done something or we were accused of doing something, and so we would all just get together, and because he would like to talk to us like individually, mm-hmm. and then also as a group, and so we would just like get together and be like, just deny everything, anything. Like, you have no idea what he could be talking about. Like, we haven't done anything, because he really doesn't know anything. How could he?
Yeah.
How could he know anything? And if you just deny it, like,
there's no evidence.
And then it's like, but we had to like make sure we had each other's back, because if we're all denying, and then one person's like, comes clean about something, then we all
get the beatings, the spankings.
Yes, we all get the reprimand of that, and so he definitely would try to like
get someone to crack.
He's like, I already know the story. I already know what
happened. Tell us.
Yeah.
They never tell you the story they know, because there is no story.
But it's like, if I didn't have my sisters like telling me like he doesn't know anything, then I would have believed him, like, oh my god, he already knows, I might as well just like be honest, and then like at least the fact that I'm honest, then
yeah,
I have that going for me. But he really didn't know anything, so I was like, okay, I'm trusting you guys on this one, and I would just deny, and it wasn't even, sometimes it was like there was really nothing that to say, but then you start thinking of every single possible thing they could be
wrong,
you know, mad at you for, and so it's like, I feel like they just want you to come clean about everything, and even though they probably were like, you probably really did nothing, but we want to see if you'll come clean about anything.
Right. Such a mind, like, fuck. I remember my dad coming to me and being like, I already know that you've been doing something with this boy, and I was like, shit. But all he knew was that I had called him once because my half-brother tattled on me. But then, because he kept being like, I already know, so just tell me, I was like, okay, I've been talking to him for months. I snuck out with him last night and I kissed him. I told him everything! Oh, and then he just sat there like, okay.
He's like, I knew it. Heavenly Father was putting an inkling in my brain.
Heavenly Father told me. But the reality was my half-brother found out and felt guilty for harboring this secret and then tattled on me. And then he said sorry to me later.
Your brother did?
Yeah. He felt bad that he tattled on me because he was friends with the guy and he's obviously close with me. And he was like, I just felt like I should, but now I feel guilty. And I'm like, we should have at least told me so I didn't tell him everything I did.
I know.
But we're going to shift into blood testing just because this is such a big topic right now for, like, I'm still trying to understand how the order does this. Someone also said that first generation incest is only a 5% chance of deformities. Have you heard this?
I don't know.
But then second generation goes up to like 20%. I don't know. Anyone who wants to clarify in the comments, let me know. But Allison told me this story, and we've heard it before in the previous video that we did together, that you were blood tested as a child.
Yeah. Like, it was me and a group of other Daniel's kids that were like around my same age, and it was at church in one of their classrooms, and like, you know, the Daniel's daughter, who I guess is in like the medical field, but I don't know if she has any actual credentials.
But she's always the one that does the blood testing, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if she does it for everybody, but she was the one who like drew our blood, and she just had like vials for everybody in the room, and so we all got our blood drawn, and they just took our blood, and I was told that it was because they needed to see like who we were compatible with when having children, to make sure that we weren't having kids with deformities.
Yeah. Where do you think she took the blood to?
I have no idea. Maybe their clinic.
Yeah, they must be doing their own testing, which I don't even know how legal that is. But then it's also like, I think because this is what bothers me. I don't know like how the 5% thing is true. Like, oh, first generation only 5%, because Ortel married 3 of his nieces from the same family, and he couldn't have kids with any one of the women he could have kids with, but all the kids had issues. So it has to be maybe because he was the uncle and it was a niece. Because he married nieces, it's different than marrying siblings. I don't know.
But or even so, like when they took our blood, it wasn't like, oh, this person's not compatible to marry any of their relatives. It was like, oh, this person's not compatible to marry this relative, but they can marry this relative. And so it must be just that they were like their DNA just not compatible at all, but doesn't necessarily mean that he can't have, because like one of his nieces, sisters, or whatever was able to have kids with him, but some of them weren't. And so it really just not only because they were related, but because they were so related, or just because the DNA that they were trying to like combine.
Yeah. And you did know that your dad married his half sisters. Like, that wasn't a hidden thing.
No, I always knew.
When I was talking to Joe about this, I just did a live stream with him. He said that the half sister that's Joe's mom married Daniel, and then there's like 2 more that were her sisters that he married. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, do you think that because those genetics worked, they were like, oh, Daniel's able to have healthy kids with his half sister, we're just going to marry Daniel off to her other sisters?
Probably. Maybe that's like how they tested it back then, because I think back then when all of they were getting married, I don't think they were doing the blood testing yet.
Right. And I've seen this happen multiple times, which yes, we see a lot of times where they marry the sisters, but Jesse married 3 of my dad's sisters, which are his half sisters. Mm-hmm. So could it be that he married the first one, they had healthy kids, so then like, hey, Jesse, marry the rest of them? That's maybe something I wonder if that was a mind set, I guess, that they're like, okay, we're seeing that this is good, so let's keep doing this. And I guarantee if they saw that it wasn't well, then they would try with someone else.
Yeah, because specifically like in my dad's family, then his first sister that he married was his 3rd wife, and then he didn't marry her other sister until like years and years later, so it was definitely after that she had already had kids.
And they seem to be healthy.
Yeah.
That would make sense, that they're like, hey, well, we already know that these genes go together. Because also if they correlated with, or tells nieces that he married and that all of them had issues, then they could correlate that, okay, all of these will be healthy. Because it's like the same genetics, whatever. But we're also going to talk about, and I asked Joe this same question, was it weird watching 2 of your half siblings marry each other?
Yeah, it was, because I went to my half sister's wedding who married our half brother, and it was so weird, but it was like, I remember it was like taboo almost, like you couldn't talk about how grossed out you were about it, but like everyone was like, okay, I guess this is what they're doing. But like her specific family, because her mom was Daniel's sister.
What?
Yeah.
So how would they, I guess they did the blood test, but that would seem like their kids would have issues if her parents have siblings, and I'm sure his parents were related too.
Probably some way.
And then they are siblings having children. Do they have kids now?
I know they have kids now, but they really struggled in the beginning
to
have kids. Yeah.
Wow. What was the wedding like?
It was very small. It was at the Ensign Learning Center's number 10 room. Oh. So it was really small. And I only went to the reception part because like the actual wedding ceremony, like Daniel straight up told us, he's like, anyone who goes to this wedding would be at risk of being prosecuted because we're all witnessing a crime. Like we knew that.
He said that?
Yeah. So that's why he was like, so the ceremony, I don't know who was at the ceremony. I can only assume it was her, him, Daniel, and their moms.
Yeah. So how old were you when you were witnessing? Did you
14.
You didn't witness the ceremony?
I did not witness the ceremony, but the reception after the ceremony was the same day.
Okay.
So when they like came after the ceremony and into the reception, then I was there, and I was 14, and I just remember
being like, I guess our siblings are having babies.
And it's like because her parents were also siblings, like that specific family, it was the whole idea of incest was so taboo. Like they didn't like if we made fun of it. They didn't like if we talked about how gross it was. They didn't like us to even acknowledge it. They were just like, don't talk about it, guys. Like, we know. Like,
yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, even finding out that my dad married his sister, I was like so weirded out by that. But I always wondered if it was just because of the way I was raised. But I think it's just like, it's not very normal, especially when you look at your own half siblings. You're like, I don't really want to marry them.
Yeah, and back then I really did believe in their whole concept of having a number one choice of this is who you are supposed to marry, this is who you are supposed to have kids with, and just feeling so bad for the girls who their number one choice was their brother or their number one choice was their uncle. Like it grossed me out, and I felt bad for them, but I still believed, like, I guess that's what God wants them to do, and I really, really hope that God doesn't want me to do that, because I don't think I could.
Yeah, and I think some of them, like we were talking about this before we started filming, the specific couple that we're talking about, she seemed to really have liked him, right?
Yeah, from what I can tell, she seemed to have really liked him.
That story you told me, I'm trying not to laugh at it, but I think it's so interesting. But she was also very young when that happened, right?
What, of the bugs?
The kiss buggy?
The kiss buggy?
I wrote it down.
Yeah,
because we should talk about it.
Because I don't know what went on behind the scenes and how much coercion, like how long it took them to convince her to marry her brother. But after they were married, then they seemed to be in love. And I remember, like, one time I was even in the car with her, and she saw like a what are they called?
Slug bug?
A slug, like one of those slug bugs drive down the road, and she's like, oh, it's a kiss buggy. I need to remember that because we always kiss each other whenever we see those. And I was just like, ugh.
So at least, but this is better than the latter of her being so sad that she had to marry her brother. I guess learning to like what she ought to do.
Yeah.
That sounds better than a life of misery. But part of me is like, does she really like it?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of it, you really, really just have to force yourself to like it because if whether you like it or not, that's what your life you're gonna live.
Right. And I've also thought of like the whole fact of we were just like that. You're supposed to. And then we couldn't have our first kiss till our wedding day. We couldn't even know what crushes were because that was bad. So maybe your mind is just set up for, I'm just marrying who I'm going to marry. I'll learn to love them later.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't really know what it feels like to have a true love or a crush, or you're not supposed to anyways.
Right.
So maybe it doesn't feel so abnormal marrying your brother because you've never even experienced love.
No, and like they get them so young that I know like for me at 14, even 10, marrying my brother was weird, but I guess maybe
if you're coerced enough, if you're brainwashed enough, you can really be brainwashed into anything, especially when you're that young. Your brain is it's still growing. You're still not like certain of yourself. And then being raised in a cult like that, we're really, it's really not, what's the word I'm looking for? You're discouraged from getting to know who you are because they want to tell you who you are.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
So then you have a really bad sense of self and a really bad sense of trusting your intuition because you feel like your intuition is the natural man. At least I did. I felt like really selfish or really guilty whenever I had these thoughts of leaving or of not living the life that they wanted for me. Then it's like you're just guilting yourself at that point.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that of trying not to let your mind wander too much because like it was giving into like the devil's temptations.
Yeah. Also, do you think that that's why they kept us so busy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot. You can't think. Once you're so busy, like you were working 100 hours every pay period, right? You're so busy that every time you have a second to think about how miserable you are, you can't really sit in that for too long.
Yeah, you can't.
It's crazy to think about. Okay, well, did you want to add anything else about being Daniel's kid? Or watching your siblings marry each other?
I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything at the moment.
I know.
Unless you have any other questions.
Though, with the longer that I've been out, the crazier it kind of seems.
It does. And even like when I do like open up to people about it, then like their shock isn't as shocking to me. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yep. Whereas before I was like, it's not that crazy. But now I'm like, no, I know.
That's so true. Like with the healing journey in the beginning, it was, wait, what's so weird about that? Wait, that's abuse? I didn't know that. So it's stomaching what it actually was. And now it just seems like we've grown so far from the people we were in the order, and it just seems like it's not even our reality anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't even seem like it was like the reality of my past. Like it feels like it was like a story or a dream that I like was told, but then like having to remind myself
that was you.
That was me, and that was so my childhood, and that was my life.
Do you think that that's what healing looks like then, and that means that we're in a good place, hopefully?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's definitely different for everybody, and I think that healing is ever going. Like, it's just something that we're always gonna have to be like consciously working on, and it's gonna come and go in waves, and it's gonna look different. Like, I'm happy now, but maybe 5-10 years from now, then I won't be happy with having to think of my past as something that wasn't real. Maybe and I'll want to address that, but I think it's just gonna change as I change.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think as long as you're constantly progressing, then you can find happiness in that. But as soon as you feel stagnant, that's what in the order I felt so like there was a roof on my progression. I was never gonna grow.
Oh, for sure.
And then the depression's the only thing growing. But thank you for sharing. If you guys want to watch any more of her videos, I'll leave them in the description box down below. I'll leave your Instagram. If you guys, do you have a public Instagram?
I think so. Yeah.
She's
follow me.
Yeah, go follow her and her cute little boys. They're so cute. And then stay tuned because we have another video where she's going to be discussing more about incest. Okay, love you guys. Bye.